Mikel Merino became the Arsenal hero when he came off the bench to score a brace up front in what was an incredible performance for Arsenal. In this video, we're going to talk about why him being a striker makes complete sense right now given the injury crisis, and why you should expect to see more of him in this position in the future. So let's get into it. Now, first of all, I kind of feel a little bit vindicated because all week I was saying Mikel Merino is the best option for striker for Arsenal over Raheem Sterling touching the pitch. Now, less said about Sterling the better, but we probably all know and all think the same with that. But Mikel Merino came off the bench and was incredible. And although he's never played striker in his life, he admitted, only when he was 8 or 9 years old, I think he did the role brilliantly, or at least to a good standard of what Kai Havertz would have done. And that's why it makes sense. Now, first of all, I see lots of comments about, well, he isn't a striker, so you can't expect to play him there. But that is just not how football works right now. You have seen teams really function with players who have great physical attributes, especially with some technical ones. And in the Premier League right now, if you just look at some of the top strikers, I think about Mateta, I think about Chris Wood, and even Beto recently for Everton has been great. And these are big guys, a massive physical presence that can hold the ball up and also, more importantly, get in the box. Now, Merino is kind of like that. First of all, I love his movement off the ball. Something that let me down in this game was the intensity by Arsenal. I think out of anything, you can expect the passing to be a bit rusty as we haven't played in 10 days, but the intensity should have been there. And I felt like Sterling didn't have any of it, and Trossard couldn't do it by himself. There was a few times Trossard was actually pressing by himself and it didn't really work out. And the idea for him was basically to get as further up the pitch as possible, so the space would be created in front of the defenders, which we have other players run into. But we've spoken about that in my other video, and the physicality was a real issue with them other players. Now, straight away, Merino is just someone that gives you an outlet. If you want to take a goal kick with David Raya, which is something we have done a lot, we've launched the ball to Kai Havertz this season, having Merino be that person in the air is brilliant. We know how good he is from aerial duels, one of the best in Europe last season, and has been incredible this. What I love about him is that he gives some solid nature into the midfield. There was a lot of times where he'd work back in the positions we have seen him in that left half channel, being calm with the ball and taking his time. This also allowed Arsenal to get more players forward, allowed us to have some overlaps with Trossard and Waneri getting out wide, and him and Odegaard actually worked as them two creative aspects in the central areas when he came on. This meant we didn't have to rely on Declan Rice as much, but I do think from a creative standpoint did kind of struggle in the final third in this game, which sometimes it happens, that is not really his main position. Now, one of the issues I had with Trossard up front in this game is that he couldn't stay onside, not always because of his fault, sometimes the timings in midfield were a bit off as well, but because he doesn't have that height and that real physicality, he's waiting for some drop balls to happen and some lucky moments, which didn't really occur. Something we spoke about before about why I don't really like him playing up front without Saka or Martinelli playing is because there were the players that got in behind for him before where he could get into the middle and be alert. That's not happening anymore, and we're trying to go direct to Trossard, which just isn't working. And because we didn't really have any options that could go centrally, you know, Waneri liked the central channels when he came inside, but he's not going to operate up against a defender like that. Odegaard isn't either ball to feet player. There was multiple occasions where he could have ran in behind in this game and he did not. And then you look at people like Partey, Sterling, Rice. Rice could do it a little bit, and we tried it a few times from some late runs from him, but it didn't really work out, and we needed him to recover and get back defensively because Leicester worked very hard. So in the end, I think we kind of scrapped that the more the game went on. Now, Merino added this. He was brilliant off the ball completely. He would pick up space on the right half channel and the left half channel in the middle. Anywhere Arsenal needed that extra man, he would be that +1. This gave Arsenal a good build up, a little bit better, because him and Odegaard could both facilitate in different areas. They would work off each other, kind of switch positions sometimes you would see, which is way more what Kai Havertz did for the team. Now, we complained that he's not in the middle sometimes, but I think in this game it kind of showed that if you just have a striker that sits in the middle, it doesn't help Arsenal. We need people to work with build up and then get into them positions when we've got settled play and we can push the team back, which is what Merino brought in tenfold. Now, this also helped Arsenal on the counter attack, which might be a product of when he came on being quite late. Leicester probably thinking they can get a result, especially after that AU chance, which Miles Lewis-Skelly does brilliant to put wide. But this allowed us to boot the ball up the field a lot more, get Merino into them positions where he could come deeper and work with the ball and push it past players to get up. Trossard isn't someone that is necessarily going to do this because from that physical nature, when he gets pushed, he might lose it. But Merino is a big physical guy. high so he can bring the ball down and send people through when Rice working next to him, and obviously more importantly Waneri into that attacking channel. Now what I will say is other players really did play well when Merino came on. It wasn't just him. Obviously Waneri was brilliant all game. I think Calafiori's cameo was astonishing. I think he was excellent, and Trossard played a lot better on that wing position, which I think he's much more accustomed to. But when I did my analysis on Arsenal's striker potentials, I said that sometimes we just have enough good crosses, enough good ability where we will create at least one big chance a game, where sometimes you just need a big guy that's going to make good runs and get on the end of it, and that's what he did. His running in the box I thought was superb. He was so good at being at the back post multiple times from different locations and always changing his run so the defenders could not track him. The first goal is a brilliant example of this. The original cross comes in from the left, I think, and he makes a good run with two defenders on him, but it doesn't come to him. They just about get that clearance away, and then straight away he moves his position. He identifies the ball is out on the right this time and gets into that back post behind the fullback and the centre back. That is that area you want to attack, and we're seeing him attack as a box crushing player where he just takes that opportunity himself without players taking players away from it. Now they're ball watching Leicester, they don't really prepare for it. Waneri does quite an early cross where he brings it down and instantly crosses it in, and that cross is pinpoint. It's exactly where Merino is. He's behind Wout Fares and he does a brilliant powerful header. Now he shouldn't miss from this range, I will be honest with you, but we have seen how bad people like Havertz are in the air, and I always have said Merino is a better player in the air, so if you give him these chances he will take them, and this was a brilliant example of it. Now his impact I think was even more obvious in the second goal. However, obviously later on in the game, not only is it perfect to have Merino on the pitch for this because he can sit deeper now with him, he can play in DM and you can move Odegaard a bit more centrally, it's just how physical and great he is as well. He wins a header in the 86th minute in a defensive area for Arsenal to clear the ball. Now after some pinball effects, it actually ends up going back to Arsenal where Calafiori makes that driving run into the channel and waits for Trossard and puts that ball through. Now this entire time Merino is making a striker-like run across the pitch. Remember, he is a central midfielder, a left centre mid in that, and has been used to them pressing structures that we have got. Not always the best at them, but I've always said that off the ball I think Merino is really good when we have it more specifically. Now this is one of them brilliant moments because Arsenal don't score a lot from breaks, let alone a break where it's free against basically a whole midfield and a defence. They all do brilliant in the move, Calafiori, Trossard and Merino, but Merino just trusts Trossard that he's going to find him. He finds the space. He could go into the centre here, but he knows that space is at our back post because they weren't tracking quick enough. Christensen doesn't get back, and he's able to ghost into that position yet again in between the players that should be marking him, and a brilliant ball by Trossard back post comes to him and he does a great finish off his left foot on the half volley, controls it into the net. Now the finish is not really something we're going to talk about because it is quite pedestrian despite being obviously quite a good technique, but it's all about that movement off the ball, which I think is in key. That is the sort of movement that we would not get from Trossard, but more importantly really is that we wouldn't get that sort of supply to Trossard in the first place. Like I think Trossard can make good movements in the box. He isn't physical, but he can be quite nifty and get in behind, but Sterling was never going to put a ball like that in and actually run at a defender successfully, which is one of the big reasons Merino has to be up front for me, because Trossard has to be on that left side unless you want to put someone else up front and figure something else out. Now there's a lot to think about this Merino situation, because do I think he should start every game in this role? No. I think even in the West Ham game coming up, it might be a bit touch and go because West Ham are going to be a team that prioritises sort of defending them sort of angles, and they will be tight within the box to try and stop crosses and head them away. But maybe he will push people away from people like Waneri, where Waneri gets that space, and Odegaard to actually create. Maybe not even playing him as a quote-unquote striker, but in midfield could be the way to go, and then he can move into them attacking channels when needed. And I say that as well because of the stats in this game. He only made 6 out of 9 passes, only on the pitch for 21 minutes of course, only had 16 touches, was dispossessed twice, and only made 2 touches in the opposition box, which we know what happened with them two. Now with that being said, he actually lost 0 out of 2 duels, which isn't a lot, but proves he didn't win a ground duel, and 2 out of 3 aerials, so he is important in that way. There's games where he could be very important in, but he is a bit erratic and sometimes doesn't do the right thing. But then I guess you could say this there about most of the team right now. So it's definitely a consideration to have. Like I said, he's not going to get in midfield, so maybe continuing to put him in this role would be a good thing to see. After the game, he actually said to the commentator that he doesn't think he'll be played up front again, and it was actually a thing that they spoke to him about on the day before the game. He hadn't trained him there, it wasn't really prepared, which is crazy because we've been talking about it for a few days now, and I just think he makes the most sense and gives us the most like Havertz move. Arguably could be a better player in the air. Now, it doesn't solve our issues, of course, but right now it could be a solution to the problems. Now, Sterling is not good enough, so maybe another problem has occurred, but I honestly think people like Tierney should be given a go in left wing consistently, or even Calafiori, who was excellent in this game, who I'm sure we'll talk about within the coming day. Let me know what you guys think about this crazy Merino game, a central midfielder coming on to win us the game. Don't see that very often. Let me know who you would want to see up front in that West Ham game next week, so it's obviously a big one. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.